What is going on, everyone? Happy Monday. How was everybody's weekend? Thanks for checking our latest Trade to Black podcast presented by Dutchie. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Michael Bronstein going to be coming on in just a moment. I just reminded myself I actually got to send him the invitation. So I got to send him the link. We're going to have him on. But yes, he's going to discuss some of the stuff that we talked about with Mark Cahotis on Friday. How do we get all these executives in from both the hemp and the cannabis industries all in one room and become more unified? How do we regulate nationwide THC in a format that makes sense for both industries where we can start working more in conjunction with each other? That is the topic of conversation today. As well, talk about Senator Ron Wyden. He's becoming extremely concerned on the delay from the Trump administration regarding rescheduling. Plus, could there be changes for gun owners in cannabis because the Supreme Court is about to hear a case that could be very, very telling. And with that, another reason why we need to modernize these laws around cannabis in the U.S. Let's welcome in AV here on a Monday. Good to see you.
I sent Michael the link, by the way.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. I said to myself about an hour and a half ago, I got to get that over, and I forgot to. But how are you? How was the weekend?
It was good. I had my weekly humiliation ritual of watching the Dolphins yesterday, which was we are the worst football team in the league. Aside from that, it was a good weekend.
2 years ago, you're a decent team, and then it was just a nosedive. But
3 years ago, we were one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl.
I know.
We were putting 60 on teams.
By the way, what were you cooking yesterday? I saw that on your Instagram feed, and oh my God, did that look good.
I just made tacos.
Yeah, but those weren't just any tacos.
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah, you're right. Chow, run or go. Jets are the worst team in the NFL. They are.
I'm watching the Dolphins' full body of work, and it's horrendous.
David Benz, did you see that game against the Giants and Broncos? How did the Giants lose that game?
Giants are fresh. I like Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo a lot.
He looks decent.
They look real good. But it was a solid weekend. We're getting good weather down here finally. It's not the humidity is subsiding.
Yeah. Why would cannabis unify now when hemp may be federally restricted soon, writes Alex Solstice? Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
I don't think hemp is ever going away.
I don't either.
I don't think hemp is ever going away. I think hemp has the money as well as the strategy, as well as the influence within the right centers that they need to influence to stay around. I don't think it's going to be what it is today.
Yeah.
As far as synthetics, THCA flower, and the free market that it gets to operate in, I think it's going to come in from the cold and be governed under rules and regulations.
I do.
Hemp's never going away. Hemp-derived edibles, hemp-derived beverages, hemp-derived products, I don't think are ever going away.
You just hit at the very end. Hemp products, there's so much more to hemp than just, smoking it, having an edible, those types of things.
We gotta stop calling it. We're going to eventually stop calling it hemp, because hemp-derived THC, cannabis or marijuana-derived THC, they're both the same plant. I mean, they're both the cannabis plant. They are just cannabis products. They're just the THC is being extracted from a different genus. I'm pretty sure that's the right term. A different genus of the plant.
Took the words right out of my mouth. You got a great vocabulary, by the way. I don't think I've ever told you that.
But it's eventually, thank you. It's eventually all going to be the same shit.
You ever see me some of those nods when you're talking with some of those words? I'm like, good point. And here I am, like, I have no idea what that word means, but your IQ might be a little bit higher than mine, but regardless, it's Monday and it is Trade to Black presented by Dutchie. We're going to get into all these topics, but first, a quick word from our good friends over at Morgan & Morgan. Hey everyone, there's a reason investors get excited when a stock splits and suddenly feels twice as valuable. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. Think about it. When you're investing, you want the right team in your corner. The same is true if you're injured in dealing with an insurance company, and that is where Morgan & Morgan comes into the equation. Why? Well, they got more than 1,000 attorneys and over 100 offices nationwide. They've been fighting for the people for over 35 years, and their track record record, get this, it's hard to ignore. Here's what I mean by that. One example, in Florida, a client was offered just $350,000, but walked away with $12 million. That would help the portfolio. In Pennsylvania, another client turned $650,000 into a $26 million offer. That's a 40x return. So in total, Morgan & Morgan has recovered more than $25 billion for over 500,000 clients. So when you hire them, it's like bringing in a legal army that has your back. Because if you're injured due to someone else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. And let's be honest, not all law firms are created equally. So with Morgan & Morgan, get this, their fee, it's free unless they win. You can start your claim right now by clicking the link in the description or by scanning this QR code on your screen with your phone. At the end of the day, if you want what you deserve, make sure you go in with the right team by contacting Morgan & Morgan today. All right, now let's get back to the rest of our live stream. All right. Welcome back. OG Grand Ma 420 writes, your QR code is higher than your IQ. Good stuff. Way to start the Monday. I appreciate the great feedback here, my friend. But let's go. Lots to get into and feeling better and better by the minute. We're going to bring Michael Bronstein in just a moment. I want to talk about this U.S. versus Hamani case. Stems from a circuit split. Some federal appeals court have ruled that this firearm ban violates the Constitution. Others say it stands. That's why the Supreme Court has now stepped in. They're going to hear this case. We all know what this potentially could mean, but how do you interpret? How do you process? Where does this sit? Because this is definitely a step in the right direction as to what it could potentially mean on a national level when it comes to gun right owners and cannabis, right?
So they're going to hear the case. This is not by any way, shape, or form do I think the event that Trump wants to coincide rescheduling with, because this case isn't going to be heard until the next year. From my understanding. So this isn't happening anytime soon. The way laws are written is to lawfully own a firearm in this country. I mean, being registered to buy and or possessing a Schedule I narcotic is against those rules. Cannabis shouldn't be a Schedule I narcotic for these kind of reasons. I mean, you have much more higher propensity to commit crimes, let's say, with a firearm in ingesting alcohol than you would ingesting cannabis, of all things. So, I mean, the laws don't make sense. The Schedule I nature of cannabis doesn't make sense
at all.
Something's got to give before the Supreme Court hears this case, and or the Supreme Court is going to set the precedent if rescheduling doesn't happen by some random act of God, which I don't think that occurs. That the justification for cannabis to be a Schedule I narcotic is completely just absurd at this point. Justice Roberts understands this. Justice Roberts has talked about the subject. I think he understands the subject. I think you're going to have a couple justices that are sitting up there, Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett. I don't think they're going to be kind to cannabis, but at the same time, if you're looking at it objectively in the eyes of the law, cannabis should not be Schedule I in the first place. And I mean, this ruling could be pretty impactful towards the overall cause of the plant.
And if the court rules that a state legal cannabis user can exercise their Second Amendment, that undercuts Schedule I completely, in my opinion. And if you're saying it's not going to be reviewed for yet another year, so if we're sitting
not another year, it's going to be heard next year. Could be Q1 or could be Q2 of next year.
So
but it's not going to be in 2025.
Yeah, and I'm willing to say that if we don't have rescheduling by then, I'd be surprised. But here we are again, and I'm not going to get into that stuff. But yeah, it definitely would undercut the whole idea of cannabis still being classified as a Schedule I.
And Ty Grower is correct. The NRA supports cannabis users being able to own firearms. That in itself is very powerful for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I agree. I want to move now to Senator Ron Wyden out of Oregon. He basically said it's extremely concerning. This is a story that was reported by Marijuana Moment, saying he's extremely concerning. Trump has delayed marijuana rescheduling after pledging action 2 months ago, August 11th, and still counting. So when we look at this, Oregon, look, it's a senator, and he's trying to create some noise and some attention towards this topic. I don't think a senator from Oregon carries the same weight as a senator from Florida or New York or Texas. But how should, I didn't want to ask this question, how much should we read into this? But Is there concerns? Do you think he's got a point as to what he's saying at all here?
I think he's got a point. I mean, I commend Tom for having the conversation. I commend Tom for
Me
bringing
too.
facts to light and to the media and for people to have content of substance to read. But it doesn't matter what Senator Wyden thinks at all. The only thing that matters is when Donald Trump is going to announce that he's going to reschedule cannabis or he's not going to reschedule cannabis. That is it. One person in this equation matters, and it's Donald J. Trump. All the senators combined can start to cast their opinion, say whatever they want to say it's concerning, say whatever, get the government open, let them start to just tackle some of the issues that they have lined up.
Yeah.
And let's see what happens. But Senator Wyden is not going to push the Trump administration any further down the road to reschedule cannabis.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on, Shad. Don't diss the big O. Wyden is an embarrassment, though. You know what? I love Oregon. I've been there.
Oregon's a great state.
It is a great state.
It's a great state. I mean, it's got some issues. Portland's a shithole.
That coastal highway, though.
Strange folks that live there. But my brother and sister-in-law live in Beaverton, and I've been all over Oregon, down to Bandon Dunes and all up and down the coast. And it's a beautiful state.
Where's the Nike headquarters in that state?
Beaverton.
Is it?
Yeah.
Pretty impressive what he's done to that Phil Knight for that whole program.
It's an insane. I've been all over that campus. It's an insane campus.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Plus the redwoods and the coastal highway drive. It is breathtaking out there.
Mark Parker built his own building to leave his mark on the campus, and he's got a full underground garage, and it looks like something out of Star Wars, like one of the Old Republic.
That's awesome. That's right. Yeah. Star Wars was filmed out there. Lots of stuff filmed out there. But the redwoods.
Yeah, Oregon's beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah. All right. It's now time for our favorite time of the week, Insider's Edge, presented by the American Trade Association with Cannabis and Hemp. Let's roll, Lawrence. All right. It is Monday. It's time of the week. Always a great segment, probably our best segment, the best feedback we get to this entire podcast. It is time for Insider's Edge with the president of the American Trade Association of Cannabis and Hemp, and it is Michael Bronstein. Happy Monday. How are you?
Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Good to be here.
Always a pleasure. Not sure if you got a chance, but we hosted Mark Cahotis on Friday, and he made a strong case for getting cannabis and hemp leaders in the same room, said the infighting is killing reform. Thanks, Captain Obvious. He had some good points. Brought up a lot of stuff, including intoxicating hemp products like Delta 8. They flooded convenience stores, yada, yada, yada. But the most important thing is, how do we get these top executives from the hemp industry into the same room with the top executives within the cannabis industry and really get these industries working more unified? What can you share in that light? Is that the right approach, Michael? And do you think that day will ever come?
I think we're asking the wrong question by saying that, because if you look at the top producers in the market, a lot of them are synthetic THC producers who are mass producing these products. Having folks come in and talk to, folks who are MSOs or something like that, right? That's not really going to work, because if you're producing a synthetic THC product, you are pretty much very far outside the bounds of what I think the state legal marijuana industry would consider okay. And I think that that's a step further, right? Like, we look at the landscape and we're like, it's the same plant, right? THC is THC. We need parity. What we need to do is remove bad actors from the industry. And there are a lot of bad actors that are in this space that claim to be hemp companies, but really what they are synthetic THC companies. Mm-hmm. And the difference between the state legal marijuana industry and the THC, the synthetic THC purveyors, is that in a state licensed market, there are ways to do enforcement actions. There are things that they have to do to keep licensure up. There's quality control. There are all of these things. And on the synthetic THC side of the equation, we've actually seen them actively campaign against legalization in some spaces. They think that if you look at Florida, that marijuana legalization is a threat to their industry, okay, is a threat to what they're doing. And so I think that I think that the problem, I mean, when I look at it, right, it's like, okay, like it's obvious everybody should sit down and talk. But what it does is it forgets the history as to why we're here. It's not about throwing people in a room. It's about setting up the preconditions to get people in the room to talk. All right. And that precondition, I think, is how you treat synthetic THC.
Yeah.
You do with THCA flower, right? Which a lot of people have said when you test it, it's fraudulent product and it's being inverted and sent across the country. All of these things there's a day of reckoning for those types of actions.
Michael, I completely agree with you, but I mean, looking at everything objectively, the big boys in that synthetic space have kind of already asserted themselves within the sphere of influence. I mean, you see them donating to senators such as Rand Paul. One of them that we know of has influence to very high-ranking members in the Trump administration. They're not building a moat, but they have a seat at the table, let's say, versus some of the good actors in the hemp industry. So, I mean, how do we, I don't want to say eradicate because it's such a strong word, but how do we get them out of the picture when they're the ones that are actively influencing and trying to shape the regulations around the hemp industry that one would have to assume they're fighting for the inclusion of synthetics moving forward?
It's not. I think that the inclusion of synthetics is a no-go. I think that what we've seen in 40 different states, we've seen legislation put in the books on this. And anytime that anybody is in there lobbying on being able to have synthetic products, they generally have either the best that they do has lobbied to a draw.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that one of the things that we see is the good actors in the hemp industry, right? We as good actors have to point out who the bad actors are. All right. We can't sit around anymore and say, well, there are a lot of bad actors, but they're not us. We actually have to have standards, rules and regulations, codes of conduct, all right, that the industry conducts itself by, that it conducts its business by, so that we can move from what right now is prohibition to what we see as legalization.
Right.
And the issue also is that folks are being gaslit right now.
Correct.
By folks saying, okay, we're federally legal, but you're not. Right.
Correct.
And that is go talk to Congress about that. All right. Go have a conversation about that. The reality is until, and we could talk about
what happens first then if you want to get rid of these bad actors. Like, do you need direction and feedback from Washington first before you can actually?
Well, I would assume square one is kind of like what happened in Texas with the vape ban. I mean, that they're making inroads around synthetics. But I mean, I think a better question, Michael, would be if you were going to have a group from the hemp industry for the cannabis executives or the state-run cannabis industry to coalesce around, would the hemp farmers be a better target versus, let's say, the synthetic companies and the products businesses that we began speaking about?
Industrial hemp farmers have large concerns about what's gone on and how their industry has been hijacked into a synthetic THC product. Okay. And what we've seen is there are a lot of folks that are behind the scenes that are for industrial hemp, right? We're all for industrial hemp, that are saying that what's happened is that they don't have a market because there's so much uncertainty that's been created by these products, by what's gone on at the federal level, that they are having a hard time going out and producing this product under the current legal landscape.
Yeah.
So when you redefine, all right, when you redefine what it is that you're doing at the federal level, and you create a definition for industrial hemp that works for hemp farmers, you're going to get to that spot. Okay. And I think cleaning up definitions is certainly one way is certainly one way to do it. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that across the country, and we're seeing that. And by the way, I do think that we are seeing folks that are good actors in the hemp industry, of which we represent, say this is wrong. Okay, this shouldn't happen, and that needs to happen more. But the idea that the folks that are in the market right now, all right, this is like if I said to you, all right, well, if you're a casino, casinos should sit down with the illegal gaming industry. All right. And they should work it out and come up, because these guys who are running,
right.
Yeah, these guys who are running these games outside of a legal gaming framework, you know what I mean? They're making money. So It's a good idea. Just sit down and do it. Okay. And let me remind you too, that's like, all right, so we look at an issue. The way that I took it was, you know what? If Democrats and Republicans could just sit down and get along, we'd have everything solved. Right? It is to me, when I listen to that, that ignores the history of what's happened before. There is too much history that's gone under, that if you lock people in a room, the only thing that's going to happen is everybody's going to be dead. Like when you open up the door to that room. Okay?
That might be one of the best points that Dabrowski's actually had. That synthetics are a no-go, just like limited licensing is a no-go. I kind of tend to agree with him for once. I mean, I do think
I like that he says bring the water board, which I think is needed. I think it's needed. Don't miss that part.
I do think, though, if we're really having an honest conversation around this industry moving forward, the limited license nature of these markets, it's not going to stand the test of time. Like, something's going to have to give at some point for this industry to actually flourish and take shape and mature into what it's going to need to be. And I really do think that the limited license nature of a lot of markets, especially when you look at Florida with like a super vertical, if this was a horizontal market, you'd probably actually have deeper penetration within the industry, and we'd have a smaller hemp industry in the state of Florida than what we have now versus the super vertical nature of what it is right now.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about with limited license is also too the idea that folks who are operating hemp businesses should have a license. We have people circumventing
100%. They should.
We have people circumventing a licensed system right now. Okay. Correct. And so the reality is there needs to be, regardless of how many licenses you think there should or there shouldn't be, there needs to be a line of people who have licenses, call them cannabis or hemp license, whatever you want to call them, right? And people who don't. Because if you have people who don't that are selling, you know that they're operating outside of a system, and then rules can be enforced.
Right.
On where they are, right? Right now, we have this is the most absurd thing that we have right now. We have a we have a state legal system that's not legal at the federal level. Yep. We have a gray market where people say that's lawful at the federal level, right? Yep. And then we have an illicit market, which is not being enforced upon
and being sold into that gray market that's claiming that it's legal.
So how do you get the ball rolling
at the federal level?
How do you get the ball rolling in all this?
It sucks because Michael and I have said this already. They should have licensed all the companies in Texas that would have fallen into the rules and regs that they would have set forth, and just licensed all of those hemp companies. And put them into the cannabis industry in Texas. It would have been efficient.
So the train is left the station.
So the obvious thing, I'll tell you what the obvious thing to do is. The obvious thing to do is to legalize marijuana.
Correct.
Right? But that's not going to happen right now.
No.
All right. So the question is, how do we make this situation better? Right? For when we're going to get legal marijuana? Because I am not convinced that folks who have it good right now that are operating illicitly want to have rules and regulations at the federal level. All right.
But I would also argue that there are participants in the MSO part of the equation as well that don't want sweeping reform. They want limited reform that makes their businesses better, but they don't want full deschedule or full legalization because that would have negative implications, let's call them, on their current business model.
So does this sound like alignment?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. There's an alignment, right? I think that there's a alignment. Okay. There's alignment issue that you have. And these things have to be basically, these things have to be litigated in the court of public opinion. Yeah. All right. They have to be done politically, right? The idea that folks who have an interest, all right, are just going to ignore the interest that they have is not right. So I think that the reality is that we have to recognize those interests. We have to recognize those different interests, right? Because the only way to solve this problem is to be realistic about it. All right. It's not to say, all right, everybody sits down at the table and now we're going to have a solution. This is being tried. We've had conversations with everybody on this. I'll talk to anybody that wants to sit down.
It's never going to work.
And have a solution on this. And there's sticking points. They're really tough sticking points. Okay. When you talk about interstate commerce, how and when that's going to happen, all right, is problematic sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Is it going to happen before federal legalization? And what is, by the way, what does federal legalization look like? That's something else that nobody agrees upon. Okay. So I think that the issue is much more complicated than just the Pollyannish idea.
It's very complicated.
Oh, this is the same, it's absolutely the same thing. What I would say is the thing that needs to be the same is natural THC. Correct. It just does. Okay. And there has to be regulatory parity. There just does. All right. And there has to be a clear definition between what's lawful and what's not lawful. That happens. And I think the rest of the stuff falls into line. The market always knew that there was going to be a day of reckoning. Yeah. The legal cannabis market knew that there was going to be a day of reckoning too with the illicit market. All right. And you've seen this in New York. There's a tug of war on this. You see this on the ground in California. There's a tug of war about this. This was never going to be easy.
Michael, is there any state model that you think in some ways is trending in the right direction to be a blueprint for how we, work this out when it comes to THC regulation, or we're still way beyond, that's still in the making?
I think that it's still in the making because states they have developed their own histories and their own market history as to how they've gone to licensure. So if you said Minnesota is the best model, is Minnesota going to work in Florida? I don't know. Could Minnesota work in Texas? Maybe. Right.
But here's the thing. I don't know if I would take that tact as, will this work here? I would say you're going to need to force the participants to make it work and mandate what the industry is going to look like. Because I think in the next 9 to 12 months, if they can successfully roll in the hemp regulations, Missouri and Michigan are going to look pretty damn good as far as regulatory frameworks go.
You don't think they're playing whack-a-mole though in Michigan in some ways?
They are. They need to get more stringent. They need to get more stringent on their caregiver program, and need to get a little bit more tightened up on certain things. But I think that it should be relatively easy to get a license if you can prove that you can lawfully run the business, you have the capital, and you're going to be compliant and stay within the guardrails that are mandated. The wall shouldn't be 100 yards tall to enter the market at all. I just think that's just counterintuitive.
Tom, good point. Where's that comment? Parity would obviously be fair, and you're correct. and you're correct. Sorry about that. Best solution is MJ legalization. But while that isn't happening soon, the answer is not to go backwards on hemp and reduce consumer access to that.
No, it's not.
And I agree.
We all agree on that. No one on this show agrees that hemp should be banned.
Did you hear that, Brian Dombrowski?
In its natural form. I think synthetic should be banned tomorrow. Yeah. But naturally hemp-derived THC should not be banned in any form factor. Period.
So again, it goes back to my question. These bad actors.
I think we're gonna get some level of natural THC in a product when this is all, when everything is said and done. So I think that the reality is we have to recognize where the market is not where federal law is right now.
Right.
And there's been a misread. In my view, there's been a misread of federal law by a lot of charlatans, and some of which, have provided, LinkedIn internet advice, right, on legal opinions about what it is. And everyone has just run really forward. And the problem is that when folks wind up in court, these things are not standing up in court tests.
How much do you think President Trump knows this?
I think that there's generally not that much knowledge about what's going on. I think that there's confusion. There's a lot of confusion at the federal level. And I think that folks are exploiting this confusion. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing.
And it doesn't help because Senator Rand Paul said to us last month, Anthony, there just needs to be more presence from the MSOs in Washington. But to your point, Anthony,
I mean, there's presence. We've heard two of the most prominent CEOs in the space, one coming from the big ag sector, were in the White House meeting with Trump. We've heard that there's prominent people that are meeting with Donald Trump. Now, are people actively educating the people in the DOJ and people at the DEA and people in different institutions of government actively on the nuance of this sector? I don't think so.
Right.
But I think to an extent, the executive branch is being educated to the right degree as per where the pendulum needs to swing.
Sorry, I just cut you off there, Michael, but finish your thought.
I just want to say, right, you guys have heard me on this show before. My big thing is let's live in reality.
Yep.
Because if we live in reality, we can solve for what we want to see in the future.
Okay.
Yes. If we lie to ourselves and pretend that we live in an unreality, our reality is not going to be more real by the delusions that we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some of our advocacy really suffers from that. Mm-hmm. I want to know where we're at so I can tell you where we're going to go. All right. And my view is right now, and by the way, this isn't my view. Look at where FDA is on this.
It's a mess.
Look at where what the USDA rule says on this stuff. If look at what people talked around the 2018 Farm Bill. Mm-hmm. All right. Look at what courts have done. Look at what 40 different states are doing. Look at the direction that look at the direction that we've moved in over this. The reality is that there is a clear message that is being sent right now on the trajectory of where this market is.
Right.
Okay. And the Farm Bill, I think, is teaching people about what the market needs to be, but also where the market has the possibility to grow. Look at beverage. I think beverage is a good example of this. There really was a lot of disagreement around beverage actually being a practical product. If you go back 5 years ago, people would say, is beverage a real product that people are actually going to consume if we give it to a mass consumer? There was a huge question about that.
I said beverage was going to be one of the biggest things in cannabis when we started this podcast, and I got pelted. People were like, you're fucking crazy. You have no idea what you're talking about. That's never going to work. It might not be the beverages that are sold in dispensaries, but THC beverages have just gone nothing but up. That's going to be the form factor that normalizes this thing.
I can endorse that.
And it's already happening.
Say that.
And that's happening. But also the issue is here too, is that look at beverage. That's not even unified. We have alcohol industry. We have the alcohol industry split. You're talking about the marijuana industry should come together, or the cannabis industry should come together. Look at the alcohol industry. which is probably, it's old, it's sophisticated, it came out of Prohibition. Look at all the different trade groups that they have and the different interests that they have. Yeah. Okay. Distributors have different interests than folks who are making the product. We're making this way more complicated than what it is, isn't it?
No, but this is very complicated. It's very complicated and complex when you break it down.
Right, but I want to live in the world that we're in, not the world that we want to be in.
Correct.
Okay, like we have to live in the world that we're in. Okay, and so I think that the thing is like we didn't cause this problem. Let's not pretend that the cannabis industry caused this problem necessarily to itself. This is really bad federal law. These garbage rules and regulations that are in place, the uneven enforcement of what we see.
Michael, so is that a byproduct of basically the feds being like, we don't want to deal with this? States just do whatever the hell you want to do and figure this out?
Well, it's cognitive dissonance. Okay. You have people who are running around. You and I both know this. All of us here know this, that when we talk about intoxicating hemp, intoxicating hemp rhymes with marijuana. Now I'll leave synthetic THC out of this for a second here, right? But what we have here is we have a cannabis product, right? That'll produce the same effect.
Yep.
Okay. But that, for some reason, when you call it hemp, you're hiding behind the idea of what marijuana is, and all of a sudden it's like socially acceptable potentially.
Correct.
But
and
when you
federally
really
legal
and quote unquote federally legal, and when you look at the products, it's funny. When you look at a lot of these product labels, which I know you've had a lot of folks on talking about some of the fraudulent product labels that are on there, but a lot of the products are labeled 100% federally legal, right? If you have to label a product 100% federally legal, don't you think there's probably a question about whether or not it's federally legal?
It's what I got when I said screw it and bought that THCA flower. They had the audacity to put an insert card in there that said, "Wait, if you open this package, this is not marijuana. This is 100% Farm Bill compliant THCA flower. Please repack it and ship it on its way. This is all we need to do to notify you that it is."
And the Farm Bill doesn't regulate by final product. The Farm Bill doesn't regulate by final product.
So you've even said some examples about the alcohol industry. One person may want another, and here we are 100 years later, and there's still some complicated stuff that gets involved within the industry. In any ways, we always talk about simplifying things, and we could finally get some reform. But if there's so much chaos and so much uncertainty, could that indirectly in some ways get us a decision on reform in any way? Or,
I mean, we've operated under the idea that as an industry, that if we legalize on a state-by-state basis, that it would push the federal government to move. I don't know about the wisdom of that idea that we had 10 years ago, sitting here in 2025 without federal legalization. But let's pretend that logic holds, because it is honestly the only way that we were to go about doing things. I think that we all thought it would be quicker than now. And I would argue that the products that we're seeing out on the market that are sold unlawfully are being sold unlawfully because people want access and they can't get access where they want it.
Yeah, right? The biggest markets.
People are meeting consumers where they are. In the age of Amazon, right? The way people consume and the way people buy things.
I can go on DoorDash right now on my phone and have hemp edibles and hemp drinks delivered to my house within the next hour.
Yeah.
Think about that.
I could go on Cosmo and get a VHS delivered to me. Right? Like, I mean, you look back at sort of how these things are evolving, and they are going to have to evolve in that space. But the only way to do it, because here's what you have. You have different interests arguing for their segment of legalization. The only thing that is going to work is full legalization. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to have segments. We have the beverage industry saying, just legalize us. Just legalize us, right? The cannabis beverage industry is saying that. Like, the other stuff's complicated. Just remember our product. This is sort of where it is.
forming a coalition right now for both industries, is that practical, or throw that out the board? Like,
I think an industry of good, of good actors. I don't think anyone can just sit at the table and quote unquote, what is a good actor? Okay. I think all of us can decide what a good actor is and what the industry, decides what they are. And there are folks that are out there that want to have that conversation.
Yeah. We've already had people reach out to me over the weekend and they want to set up calls this week.
Yeah. I think it's a function of, can your business, the way that is structured, and your products today withstand the battle testing of being put into a regulated industry and a regulated market on the other side of this? If yes, then you have a seat at the table. If no, you have some very important, hard decisions to make. And if you can make those, then you get a seat at the table. If you can't, and you want to be apprehensive to this, then you don't get a seat at the table. And unfortunately, you probably are going to be on the outside looking in when this is all said and done. Like, it's pretty easy. Look at cornbread hemp. Cornbread hemp, I think, is a poster child for what a cannabis business that could be rolled into, let's say, what a legal framework would look like in the United States of a cannabis business of tomorrow. You could take that business in its form right now. They make organic, compliant, naturally derived edibles and drinks and go on their way. That company, I would have to say, would have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
They're transparent. They have COAs. They're walking the walk and they're talking the talk. They don't dabble in THCA flower. They don't dabble in synthetics. They seem to pretty much have the vision of where this is going. That's a good actor in the space. I think the good actors have to get out of places where they're bad actors that are advocating.
Agreed.
Okay. I think that Beverage has been hurt too by this, because they'll have organizations that are pushing, synthetic THC and THCA, right? And when they are saying, oh, all of these things are the same, we all have to get together. What happens is that you have people using that as using them as blocking backs to
100%.
try to get what they want. I think that the advocacy has been very unsophisticated.
It has been. And I mean, I don't want to throw another organization under the bus, because they are very good to me. And as far as communication goes with stuff that's going on in DC, but when you look at the Hemp Roundtable, and this is what Dank has called out on several different occasions, they have board members that are selling 7-OH, mushroom infused 7-OH hash blocks, just exotic products that, with all due respect, probably shouldn't be in the marketplace. And their other members will just put their head in the sand and just be like, we're not going to self-police. Like, it's a free country. They can do whatever they want. Like, that stuff needs to go. Yeah. That's the work that Dank has put in, that things he's shown a light on, that's done a lot of good to create conversation around these things. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff, just anecdotally, what needs to go to move this forward and create a coalition between both sides.
This is a maturation moment for the industry. This is when the industry leader is going to decide what it's going to become.
Yeah.
And there have to be grown-up discussions around this.
Exactly. But my question would be, or my concern would be, does all this stuff need to happen first before we get any kind of like rescheduling announcement?
No.
Because that could take a long time.
No. And quite frankly, if nothing happens, then the decisions will all happen to us. Yeah. Irrespective of whatever, because Congress is moving. All right. Congress is moving. They're doing what it is that Congress is going to do. And there's already been enough, I think, discussion around a lot of these issues that some of these things are just going to sort themselves out.
So these are conversations that you hear about every single day, that we talk about bad actors, but actually taking the steps to get rid of these bad actors has not been implemented, I assume, correct?
Well, I think there has been some implementation on that at the state level, right? I think that there have been some laws that have been passed. I think that we have seen, I think we have seen some of that. It's not wholesale, and it's not where we want it to see. Right. But until we actually have some level of federal resolution, that's going to be something that, states continue to fight with. And I remember when you look at policy, these things don't exist in a vacuum, because cannabis is sold everywhere.
Yeah.
And someone was saying that, and I think it was on this show, that when you look at intoxicating hemp, there's like an arbitrage play where a lot of what goes on, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to operate in these really red states that are bad for marijuana because I can go and sell this product, and then I'll pick up and move. All right. There are other industries right now that everybody says, okay, this is totally unique. But when you look at other industries, like I think gaming is actually sometimes a 1-for-1 comparison on this, because we've seen different types of gambling happen across the country. And then we've seen those businesses shut down. All right. We've seen some of those businesses get licensed, and everybody's like, oh, it's too big to fail. It's too big to roll back. Well, it's not true.
It's not
true. Okay. And the US Congress looks
cannabis is going to be people stoned everywhere in Canada. We don't even freaking talk about it. It's just a store at a freaking, it's not going to take over society. It won't.
That's a very good point. Cannabis is not a thing. It's just a normal, at this point, it's a big thing because we make it a big thing. Like it's a normal CPG. People go to the store, they buy it, they ingest it. It's the same thing like any wellness product, alcohol, anything like that in the CPG space. I mean, we just make it a big thing, and it's just amplified to be this big thing.
It could be one of the
there's still active prohibition in the eyes of the feds. You're 100% correct, though.
Our responsibility in this industry is to ourselves to get legalization across the finish line.
Yes.
Nobody owes it to us. Okay. And nobody's going to give it to us.
Yeah, I agree.
We have to go and do what we have to do to make it happen.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to clean up what's going on in our industry, go into Congress, be responsible voices of what it is that we want to see this industry be, and say we've earned it. Okay. And at the state level, that's what has to happen too. It cannot be, oh, they're bad actors out there, but we have no idea who they are. We have to call it. We have to call it out. We can't be in a situation.
We know who they all are at this point.
Right. Well, we can't.
I like the way you said that, though. That was with conviction. Need to give you paint your face on a horse like Mel Gibson and Braveheart, gather up the troops, and let's go.
Because I think there's been too little responsibility here talked about. It's like, if we can sell it, we should say. I mean, if we think it's somewhat legal to sell, then we have a right to sell it.
But that's what's going on.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Like
it's not going to get us where we have to go. See, advocacy is not matching where the business is. Okay, and it can't just be about what's the largest cash grab. I have no doubt that selling synthetic THC products makes money.
Yep.
Right. I have no doubt about it.
The bad actors make more money than the good actors, you think, right now in hemp?
I think that it's getting, I think that it's probably still less so, but when you take the tax position in, all right, that's a much different situation. And remember, a lot of these businesses are really just trying to curtail the ridiculousness of 280E. That is at the federal level. If that tax policy is legalization policy, okay, it is. Why do you think when you look at tax policy, all right, and we have problems figuring out what the illicit market is or what it's doing or its pricing, you take away the ability for people to price a certain product like that, you crush it. All right. And coming out of the end of prohibition of alcohol, that's what was done. There wasn't crazy, a tax regime, was put on later and was put on appropriately, and it was put on, on different product types.
That was one good point. That was one good point Mark had. This is like feds, excise tax, simple tax, figure out how you get your cut and just let it rip. And then just let the industry decide. Yeah. There'll be bodies, there'll be companies that blow up. But in the end, you're going to have a streamlined, efficient industry at the end of the day. And maybe we need some casualties in order for that to happen.
Meanwhile, in Canada, the Toronto Sun, which is one of the biggest publications in the country, writes today, Ontario must crack down on illegal cannabis before faith goes up in smoke. And it's already federally legalized. This conversation just doesn't end. But anyways, Row 866432 says marijuana is a made-up term hemp only produces CBD, not THC. He also writes cannabis produces THCA, THC. Anthony, you care to comment on that? All right. We'll leave it at that. Good feedback here today. And I think the right question to ask is not necessarily about gathering the troops from both sides of the aisle. It's about getting rid of the bad actors, right?
Someone texted me that today's program was going to be about ways to unify the cannabis and hemp for THC reform and that I should watch it.
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny.
It's like the Spider-Man. It's literally like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
Pointing at each other.
That's almost like asking a senator about how much he knows about cannabis reform.
I think we can do it. Look, I think we can do it, but I think we have to be truthful about what's going on in the market. It's not just about throwing people. It's not just about throwing people in the room. It's about getting the preconditions to having them there. All right. And what the market means and where it is. And we've been working with the cannabis and hemp industry for the last, over 10 years, 11 years now. We were around for that first farm bill.
Oh, Pennsylvania. We almost forgot about it.
There's a vote tomorrow?
There's a vote tomorrow, isn't there?
There's a vote tomorrow on a cannabis control board. And it is being taken up by the Senate Law and Justice Committee. The bill is Senator Laughlin's bill. So it's not his legalization bill, but it's a cannabis regulation bill. And
does this get us any further?
I think it steps the conversation. I think it takes the conversation forward because the thing is, if you're talking about a cannabis regulatory board and it's preparing for legalization, you're going to have a conversation around legalization. Currently, that bill only addresses intoxicating hemp and the medical marijuana program and putting it under one board. I think that the conversation, and because that piece of legislation specifically sets up the same board that would be set up in his legalization bill, that it is a precursor to it is a precursor bill. Perhaps it is the THCA to the actual cannabis.
Do you think it's got a good chance of passing?
I think it will be voted out of committee tomorrow.
Okay.
I think it's going to be voted out of committee tomorrow is what I think is going to happen. They've scheduled the vote for tomorrow. I anticipate it passing. It'll be very interesting to see what happens because remember, the budget conversation is still going on in Pennsylvania. We don't have a budget.
Yeah.
And budget was supposed to happen by June 30th. It's getting much more chilly out right now than it was when we were supposed to have a budget. So, I'm hoping that we're going to see some movement because of it.
Yeah. All right, sir. Thanks for checking in again this week, and good feedback from what you shared, and we'll see where we go from here. But I think also the takeaway here is that all this stuff and these moving parts doesn't necessarily need to happen first before rescheduling. Again, direction from Washington is badly needed to get up to speed on where we are today versus where we were a long time ago. But that still remains to be seen. But we will keep having these conversations and appreciate, obviously, your time. Okay.
It was a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Michael. That was great. And good points. Did you see the stuff today, too, in Florida? Irish wrote, campaign sues Smart and Safe, alleged unlawful attempt to invalidate 200,000 signatures. 200,000? That's a lot. That was
the big story in the newsletter this morning. So, yeah, I saw that. It was covered. Just going to be Uthmeyer and DeSantis fiddling around again to try and stifle what the people want in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
So, see where it goes.
How many signatures did they accumulate so far? Was it around 700,000?
I think the last thing was like 667,000.
That's almost a third of signatures.
Yeah, it's a big hit. If so, it's a big hit. Like I said, I don't think anything's going to happen until DeSantis is completely gone and there's a regime change in Tallahassee. This is going to be a big, big uphill battle.
Yeah, lawsuit was first reported by Politico. Notes that the secretary's decision to direct the invalidation of petitions comes less than 4 months before the Feb 1, 2026 deadline for ballot certification.
By the way, Kevin Sabet's book came out, One Nation Under the Influence, if anybody wants to read that in their spare time.
Do you think Kim's approach is wrong this time, writes Anthony Gambino?
I don't know. I'm going to let Kim do what Kim's going to do. She already put $25 million up in the by the way, I was joking about Kevin Sabet's book. I'd rather listen to Nails on Chalkboard. But she's going to do what she's going to do. She already put 25 mil out of the 26 that was just inserted into Smart and Safe. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more where that came from.
Yeah.
We will see. She's writing the checks, not me.
Yeah.
So I'll probably just keep my opinion to myself until November of 2026, and we get a decision at the ballot box.
Indeed. Kamala Harris getting a lot.
The good thing is, though, is this time around in the gubernatorial race, there might be more Democrats that go to the polling, they go to the voting box versus the presidential race. So there might be a different shift in strategy or a different outcome this time around. But at the same time, the regime in Tallahassee, I think, is so embedded and so against the people that are backing the initiative in the state of Florida. I think it's going to be a very, very tough battle.
Agreed. But you make a good point about more Democrats going to the voters box, because that was a clear-cut win for the Republicans and a landslide victory in that election. And as we've said before, once they see the gap is too big, what's the point of voting? But
yeah, with the Electoral College, I mean, if you're a Democrat in the state of Florida with the Electoral College the way it was, it's like it just makes it
yeah,
really going to put myself out and go vote when the entire state's pretty much going to go red.
Yeah.
And vote for Trump. Your vote really didn't matter.
All right. I've got coming up later this week, I'm going to have representatives from both MaryMed and Juicy on to talk about the PA market. That's going to be a interview coming up on Friday, both of them together. And we'll see how this vote goes tomorrow. Maybe it's a good time to have Michael back on again on Wednesday, but another day. And here we are. But that's it for now. And glad you could check in here today, everybody. And anything else you want to add, my friend?
I'm good. Good start to the week.
All right. All right, that's it for everyone for today. All you Canadians out there, hope you have some good luck tonight with your Game 7 of the Blue Jays and Mariners. Got some Monday night action tonight with the Lions playing at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That'll be a good game.
Bucks win that game.
What's that? Bucks, yeah. I think
Bucks
they win that game. And yeah, we just keep trucking along here. And obviously, if we hear anything, you'll be the first here to find out. And hopefully we just keep these conversations going and keep things positive right now. But overall, pretty much flat day for the industry. MSOs, I think, finished a little bit up, but relatively quiet. So let's see how things materialize over here this week. And we go from here. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you back here Wednesday at 4 o'clock. For Anthony, I'm Shad. This is the latest TDR Trade to Black presented by Dutchie. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, thanks again for watching here today. Listen, if you're getting value from us here at TDR, make sure to check us out at TDR Plus. It's our exclusive membership community. Why? Well, you'll see CEO interviews that go beyond business, showing a personal side that you won't find anywhere else, including the biggest names of the industry. Plus, you'll get insights from analysts and day traders on where the industry's headed, both short-term and long-term, and a direct chat group with our team. It's only $7 a month, just 25 cents a day, and it helps support everything we do here at TDR. If you want to join, just click the join button below and become a TDR Plus member today. And once again, a big thank you for being part of our community. So that's it for today. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.